welcome to episode 32, double 16. How are we all doing? That's a great episode, great number to have. Everyone's favourite, double 16. Not everyone's favourite, but quite a lot of people's favourite. There is a huge amount of darts at the moment. We've got the DPA 7, 8 and 9 just wrapped up. Premier League, Lakeside's been done and run and won. Players' Championship 12 and 13 as well. Whew. And if that's not enough and you find yourself with nothing to do, have a look on YouTube and find Online Darts Live League. That is some fantastic stuff. It is a competition and basically it's the next level of dart players underneath the Pro Tour, basically. They're competing. They have this certain system. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't figured out how it works. I think they play a night, they play a round robin, and they qualify and go through to the finals, who then go through to the Champions night. And it's fantastic stuff. Hours and hours and hours upon darts. So once you find them, have a look. And it's the next rung below. So all the guys playing in that, guys and girls, there's a lot of ladies. Lisa Ashton is quite regular in that one. And it's just, the next level below, they play on the Challenge Tour. A lot of them have just recently lost their tour card. Names like Andy Hamilton are playing in that, Robert Thornton, Josh Payne, and Nick Kenny. I'm not sure if many people know his name, but he's quite a good darts player. He's playing a lot on there as well. So, a lot of it is available for free too. So don't miss out. Look at my 180. Don't miss out on all of that. So the DPA stuff is available on Facebook through Dartstream Live. Lakeside can be found on YouTube. There should be replays of all that. It was streamed live as well, but it's over now. The Players' Championship events, anything that was on their streaming boards that goes to PDC TV is then available on YouTube as well. So plenty of darts available there. And the live league that I just spoke about is also on YouTube. So if you need something to watch, need some darts to have a look at, there is plenty around. And Australia definitely needs to get amongst that and make more available darts more regularly, because it's phenomenal the amount of darts that are on, and people watch it. Thousands and thousands of people watch all that stuff. Hundreds of thousands, really. I was going to split the episodes into two and do the PDC and the DPA, but with a lot of it looking very similar to how it normally does, we're going to throw it all together and just go through it all. Because a lot of the episodes start to look a little bit the same. So what we're going to try and do is do a few more interviews soon. I'm working on a few things at the moment, but we will definitely get there. All right, Premier League, night 9, MVG, three-night winner. He took out the night. He had Gary Anderson pulled out due to COVID. I'm not 100% sure. I think he's got it. He wasn't in close contact. He had COVID, tested positive, so he was out. So MVG, a bye straight through to the next round. Pretty dominant after that. Michael van Gerwen, 7 180s on the night. Only played 16 legs, didn't lose a hell of a lot. So that's 12-4 for the night. So he pretty bloody good. We did have 2 more averages in the 80s. I know that's a barometer for me of how everything's going. I went through some of the numbers last episode about those sort of averages, what's happening, how they're happening, but we won't go on about it again. But it was that Joe Cullen and Snakebite had those 80 averages. Snakebite, Peter Wright, was rolling with a Simon Whitlock looking dart, which you can't say it's a darts as much because he used them in his first game against Michael Smith, I think it was, and performed really well. So who knows? Bully Boy, he played Snakebite, that's right. He's making a living off performing well and losing 102 average versus Peter Wright, who averaged 103.99 against him. Looked really good, scored pretty well. I think he came out the gates with back-to-back 180s on a 9-data first leg of the night, because this was the first match of the night. And, he would have looked at Peter Wright's effort in the next game of an average of 80 and gone, what the bloody hell? Why can't I get that against him? And he would think that most weeks a lot of players are playing really well against Michael Smith, getting the job done when Michael Smith is playing well himself and then not performing as well the very next match. He really just needs to get his doubling percentages up. We speak about this over and over. He's generally around that 30% or under mark. And, his average is pushing a ton still. So once he gets those, if he can get those doubling numbers up to around that 50, they all get around that 20, 30, 30 to 40 mark regularly. But a lot of them, more often than Michael Smith, will have a 50 to 60, 70, even 80% doubling match. And that's the difference, I think. So hit those doubles, and he will be a top 4 player in the world consistently every day of the week. Yeah, he's ended with an 11 dart leg in the very first leg of the night, 180, 180. Left himself with 41, I think it was, and then took it out. So he had 2 darts at double 10 in leg 3 that he missed. 1 at the bull in leg 4, 2 darts at tops in leg 6. Those are his go-tos as well, tops and double 10. So unfortunate for him. And if there's a player in the world you're back to hit the bull on a combo finish, it's Michael Smith, because there's no thinking about it. He knows where he needs to be. He keeps that rhythm, and he normally hits it. So unfortunate, but he's just got to get that right. As I said, he doesn't stray from tops and 10s too much. So yeah, you think he'll get that right soon. It'll come. It'll come for Michael Smith, and he's going to take over the world. Yeah, he scored 1 fantasy point. The app played up for me. After night 8, it was like it thought that was a knockout night and didn't register my score properly. I couldn't even get onto it for a week. Luckily, the players that I had locked in did all right, which was Wade, Clayton, and Van Gerwin. Joe Cullen, well below his best. He had a 6-1 loss to Johnny Clayton. He really struggled from the get-go, did Joe Cullen. His scoring was down, 87 average, as we discussed before. Was finishing at 20%. Now, it can happen to Joe Cullen. He relies very heavily on rhythm. A lot of you people that are watching on any platform that can see the footage, I think it's through Spotify, his throw doesn't come in front of his eye very much at all, and it's out here, so it's not aimed at all. It's out to the right side of his face. Never really comes in line with his sight, straight down the barrel. It starts from wide, so he's very much a rhythm muscle memory type thrower. So if he doesn't get going, then it's a struggle for him to get going. He scored -2 fantasy points. So the fantasy points, I think, is 3 points for a 180, 1 point for an average above 100, 1 point for a ton plus checkout, and I think it was 10 points for a 9 dart leg, and you lose 2 points for losing a match. So if you don't do any of those figures, you end up with -2 points, and that's how a lot of players score. Because in the first of 6, it's some of them don't hit 3 180s, some do. They don't do a hell of a lot else. There's not enough time for them to hit too many ton plus finishes, so a lot of them score that little. Gerwin Price, he looked okay at a 97 average. Is 41% on his doubles, so that's not too bad. We all know how much he's struggling with that hand injury that he's got. Cancelled his boxing match. That was funny. He was talking about how he was disappointed because he couldn't smash, and then he forgot the name and said whoever it is. So that was quite funny, and it shows his personality. He's just a carefree guy that is just out there to have some fun in life, which is what we want to see. But it was a typical loss to James Wade, a loss to a typical James Wade performance. In the last leg, he just couldn't find a treble. He didn't hit a treble for the first 9 darts, so definitely fell behind the 8 ball. I think James Wade went 140, 140, 100, and ended with a 12 dart leg. And yeah, but he's battling back from that. He's starting to look better and better. Not as many low scores, low averages, downward spirals in matches. So definitely seeing a better Gerwin Price on the improve. So he's probably just resting when he's not actually playing. I think he did play the Pro Tours on the weekend. He definitely did. One of them he lost to Gordon Mathers, which we'll talk about later. -2 fantasy points as well. Once again, didn't really do anything spectacular. Johnny Clayton made the semi-final. Obviously, Gary, we're not going to talk about Gary's performance because he didn't perform. He wasn't there. Yeah, Johnny Clayton made the semi-final. He had a 6-1 win over Joe Cullen. It was a very, very solid performance. Even though Joe didn't really turn up, you still got to win the game, and he got it done. Looks like getting back to his best on his 140s. He hit 7 of them versus Joe Cullen, a couple of 180s, 46% on his doubles. So looked good in that one. He went down 6-4 to another typical James Wade performance. So not much to report back there other than James Wade got it done 6-4, got the breaker throw when he needed to, and held onto his throw to James Wade, and that was that. 2 fantasy points for Johnny Clayton, so he was in my team. Peter Wright, kind of a typical Peter Wright Premier League night in my eyes. He's sensational versus Michael Smith with that 103 average that we said, and 66% on his doubles, a 108 finish. Besides the first leg, where Michael Smith came flying out the gates and Peter Wright was just hanging onto his coattails, he looked the winner, so never going to get done in that one. And then, the exact opposite in the next match against Michael Van Gerwen, average 86, just 20% on his doubles. So, poor old Michael Smith will be spewing that performance comes out not against him. But Peter Wright's just going to keep accumulating points in the Premier League. And that was a 6 fantasy point night for Peter Wright. So if you had Peter Wright, you're doing okay. James Wade's similar in the accumulating points regard. Just two basically identical performances for James Wade to make the final. The 6-5 win over Gerwin Price, a 101 average, very good on tops and tens as per usual. 96 average versus Clayton, as I said, that one breaker throw, and Johnny Clayton versus Johnny Clayton, 50% on his doubles. James Wade did well. Talk about the final. We won't even really talk too much about the final at all because Michael Van Gerwen won it pretty convincingly. It was a 4 fantasy point night for James Wade. As I said, Michael Van Gerwen had the bye versus Gary Anderson because he was out with COVID. Let's just stretch my head up a little bit so that I don't keep popping out like that. There we go. There I am. I'll still probably pop out. Whoa. I shouldn't be doing that. I should be trying to look more professional. He took care of Peter Wright, did Michael Van Gerwen, after having that first night off. So it's the second time it's happened. Gerwin Price pulled out and Joe Cullen had a bye. And Joe Cullen didn't handle that well, but Michael Van Gerwen did. 6-3 against Peter Wright, and he's beaten him a few times now this Premier League. So Michael Van Gerwen will be happy with that. And, looking to continue on that run against the world number one. So he had 5 180s for the night. In that match in the final. That was the Peter Wright match. Sorry. 5 180s, 5 140s, and then was just far too good for James Wade in the final 6-1. He was well ahead in most legs and, just dominating really, and dominant for the whole night. 10 fantasy points. He was my captain, pushed up to 20. I had 26 points and the highest was 36, so it wasn't too bad on my behalf. I was pretty happy with that. As you would be. And I'll continue on my merry way with that. Next week, you've got Peter Wright versus Gerwin Price. I think Gerwin Price might get up in that one. I think Peter Wright might have a bit of a night off. Gary Anderson versus James Wade. I think Gary will bounce back. I'm not too sure. And then the other side, Michael Van Gerwen versus Johnny Clayton. I think MVG wins that. Joe Cullen versus Michael Smith will play the winner of that MVG Johnny clash. Look, I think Bully Boy might get up this week. I really do. I think he'll have a good win against Joe Cullen, who seems to be struggling a bit in the Premier League, especially the last couple of weeks. I know he had that win, but it wasn't solid and then struggled since then. So I think definitely Michael Smith, he'll get on his bike against Joe and then he'll take care of MVG and then probably Gerwin Price in the final. So my fantasy team, Johnny and MVG are in the same game and they're playing each other, so I've got to decide whether to guarantee a win there. They're both high-scoring players. I've got James Wade on the other side of the draw, who I have tipped to lose, so I'm not 100% sure what to do here. You only allow one trade without losing points, so I may go with a Clayton out for Michael Smith, which is very, very dangerous given that Johnny Clayton is a high scorer. Unless I go with James Wade out for Michael Smith, then I'm guaranteed someone to make the final. I may just do it that way. But anyway. All right. Before we wrap up the Premier League, so the ladder. Here it is up here. Michael Van Gerwen, first place, right up the top. Where are we? Right up the top with 22. Johnny Clayton just below him with 19. Third place you can see up here. I'm just practicing this. Peter Wright on 16. Then you got Daylight. Daylight's here. And then James Wade in fourth place. Let me just swap these around, see if this can work in my favour. Yeah, that's so much better. You got 18 points and daylight to James Wade on 13. Joe Cullen on 12 in 6th place. Gerwin Price, 9 points. Michael Smith, 8. Gary Anderson on 7. So if you look at that, you're looking, I've said it before, I'll say it again, you're not going to see too much change, I don't think, from there. With the way Johnny Clayton and Johnny Clayton and Peter Wright are just accumulating points week in, week out. They're always in at least a semi-final. They'll keep on rolling. Michael Van Gerwen will run away with first place. He'll keep winning. He'll win another 3 nights, I reckon, from here. So you're looking at Johnny Clayton, Peter Wright. That position may swap around, and you may have Peter go up, Johnny go down. That's where it goes backwards. And from the rest of it, look, I don't really know too much. It's hard to pick. Anyone can get on a run. James Wade probably finishes there because he will once again do the same thing. He'll just keep winning and winning and winning. Every now and then, just enough points to get himself in that position. I think he's made 3 finals now. So you're probably looking at James Wade holding on to his spot. If anyone's going to take it, it's Gerwin Price, who I tipped to win the Premier League. I wasn't tipping a broken hand, though. But if he can get that right, he'll definitely get on a run enough to make it through to that 4th spot and push James Wade to 5th, which is what I predicted anyway. And then your only difference from what I tipped was Peter Wright and Gary Anderson. Look, Gary Anderson probably finishes bottom from here. I don't know too much. I think you're probably looking at Joe Cullen's still a chance to finish down there. Gary's only winning 1 night away from being on top of Joe Cullen and very close to the top 4. But yeah, that's that. We'll just get rid of that now and continue to marvel at my 180 in the background there. Have a look at that bad boy. That was one of the first ones I threw with those new darts. You can see how new they look. Oh, so shiny and so clean and so beautiful. Struggling with them now a bit. Not struggling, but just my release. I can't get my release right. I think I've got my wrist too far back. So when I'm trying to release the dart, my hand is then coming through too much. Sort of like that. So I think I need to get it back straight and then release. See if I can do that. Get it back straighter. Not have the wrist so far bent. Try and get it on the side a bit for you. I can't do this. Not have it so far bent so that the hand comes out like that. Not like this. But anyway, I'm just playing with those cameras. I shouldn't be doing that. We're professional here. Players' Championships 12 and 13. So I've said it before, I'll say it again. Players' Championship is where it's at. This is where the best darts are played. By a long stretch, I think. Dirk van Duijvenbode took out Players' Championship 12 with a win over Ryan Searle, who was heading for back-to-back titles, and in the final looked like he was going to wrap it up. I think it was 4-1 up before Dirk van Duijvenbode made a hell of a run to overtake him and win it. Both were very good all day, though. Looked the winner all day. They were the best performers by a long way. Ryan Searle was sort of in that Rob Cross mood where it looked like he was just going to win the whole thing throughout the whole day and then in the final. But Dirk van Duijvenbode just hung on in there and got rolling. And when Dirk van Duijvenbode gets rolling, he is hard to stop. He's a big dude who can throw a dart. Very simple throw. He is just a poof, poof, and hits those treble 20s with ease. And yeah, stayed in it, hung on, and got the win. So well done to Dirk. I think it was his second Players' Championship win. Players' Championship 12 was a great day for our Aussie dudes. Gordon Mathers and Simon Whitlock made the quarterfinals. So they're both starting to roll now. They're both getting minimum 1 win, even 2 wins a weekend. The first 4 or 5, they were both losing first go every go. But now they're definitely starting to get on a roll, both of them. So Gordon Mathers made a last 16 last weekend and now a quarter. So just gradually moving his way up, and that's good. So Gordon Mathers, and listen to some of the names that he beat. He beat Darryl Gurney 6-4, Ian White 6-3. Jack Main, who's not as much of a well-known name, but is starting to perform well on the Players' Championship events. He beat him 6-2. And that's the thing when you come up against, you get a name that's not as well-known, just a lot of the players will tend to drop off a little bit, and that's why those other names will perform out of their skin. But they're in the top 100. Ooh. the top 128 players in the world for a reason. And he beat Gerwin Price as well, 6'5". So he hit two 180s in the last leg to leave 41 points after 9 darts in the last leg decider. And if you're going to beat Gerwin Price, that's how you do it. Lost out to Michael Smith 6-3 with a solid performance, but just not good enough to take care of Bully Boy. But a quarterfinal is a quarterfinal, so fantastic for him. Simon Whitlock 6-5 over Willie Borland, the young man who hit that 9 data at the Worlds. 6-3 over Steve Lennon, 6-5 over Chris Dobie, took a 102 average to beat Chris Dobie, and 6-5 against Jose de Souza, who averaged 8 points higher than Simon, but Simon was able to do the job. He did lose 6-0 to Dirk van Duijvenbode, who ended up going on and winning it, so no shame there for Simon. Now the interesting thing I wanted to talk about as well is the young guys on tour. So we saw Willie Borland at the Worlds put in an amazing performance. Keane Barry had a great performance at the Worlds and a great run at the UK Open. And yeah, you're just seeing a lot of these young kids that aren't performing on the floor, and it's super important. Bradley Brooks, we saw also as well, have a great run in the Grand Slam, but they're not putting that performance together yet on the floor. And they're probably going to need to start doing that. I know they're only young and they're up against all these experienced players, but you can't live off. This is where they call it the bread and butter, the Players' Championship events. That's where you get your experience, you work your way up. You can't rely solely on those major tournaments because you're not always going to have a massive run. As I said, you saw Keane Barry. He's done it once. And how long until he does it again? Cullen Rid's another one. We haven't seen Cullen Rid's do well yet since the Worlds. So they will need to start putting in a bit more of an effort. Not an effort, but definitely trying to improve in those areas. Because they're all very talented, but are just not getting it done. You can't just wait for those players to fall off a cliff before you start improving and moving your rankings up. Damien Hedder went one step further than Simon Whitlock and Gordon Mathers. He made it to a semi-final. 6-4 over Martin Lukeman, the man that he lost to in that amazing game at the Euro Tour. I think it was the Intervetten Darts Open. 6-3 versus Nathan Rafferty, another one of those young fellas. 98 average. All his winning legs were 15 darts and under. 6-4 versus Mencha Sulovic. He was 4-1 down, then won 5 on the spin. So that's a great performance. 6-1 versus Joe Cullen. Averaged 120 over the last 5 legs, won 4 of those. So got rolling there. 6-3 against Johnny Clayton, who he started to beat on a consistent basis. And a 7-2 loss to Ryan Searle, which could have been a lot closer. He was in a lot of legs. Players' Championship 13 now. Nathan Aspinall back in black, the Asp. And he gave out a big roar, and so he should when he won that one, because he's had to fight, he's had to battle. A lot of pain going through his wrist as he's throwing. So to push through the way he is fantastic. He had an 8-6 win in the final against Canadian Matt Campbell, who we saw at the Grand Slam. And this was his first Players' Championship final, and he's really starting to impress everyone on the Pro Tour. And you're going to see more and more from him. The last time we saw a Canadian win, I think John Part in 2012, they said, somewhere along those lines. Maybe even more recent, 2016 or something along those lines. But it's great to see a Canadian or Northern American player doing so well. There's a few there. Danny Baggish and Danny Lauby are both over there. And they're going to be great players as well. So darts is spreading with our 3 Aussies doing well. I'm not going to pronounce it right, but Hoha Puhai, I think I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I don't know how to pronounce it. He had a loss to Raymond van Barneveld, unfortunately, but he's on that next level. He's called up from the Challenge Tour, that rung below that we talked about earlier. He got a call up, so didn't beat Raymond van Barneveld, but imagine drawing the 5-time champion of the world. But he's there. He's almost ready to go, the Kiwi. Brendan Dolan and Gabriel Clements also made semi-finals. Whitlock lost to Adam Gallas, who I think he's lost a few times to, unfortunately. But that's just what happens. Gordon Mathers beat Jeffrey Deswan 6-5, and then drew Damien Hedder and had a loss there. But another win. So after going out basically first round for the first 5 or 6 Players Championship events, he's now made, I think he made this last weekend, he made a second round and last 16. This weekend he's made second round and a quarter final. So just continue to go and get it done. Damon Hedder, he beat Jason Lowe 6-4. He just continues to finish legs in 15 darts or less. So, and then he beat Gordon Mathers 6-2. And he lost to Gabriel Clements, unfortunately, in the third round, 6-4. All of his games were... No, he averaged 102 across all 3 games. So just consistency from Damon Hedder there. And it is taking them stunning performances to beat Damon Hedder. That is just the way it is. He's one of the most consistent players at the moment. And yeah, Simon Whitlock, Gordon Mathers just need to keep plugging away. I think Simon's is pretty entrenched in that top 30. He's 24th at the moment. Brendan Dolan at any moment could overtake him for 24th. 24th, the only importance that holds is the Masters. Everything else, that's not really relevant. Top 32 is where you want to be. Then it's top 16, so all good there. The Players' Championship, it just keeps adding at the moment to the list of informed players. With just over 3 months to go to the World Match Play, a lot can happen. I know a lot of players can drop out of form, but a lot of players can get into form too. So with Ryan Searle, Dirk van Duijvenbode, who needed that, I think he's had a lot of not so great performances, especially on the TV. He'd be stoked with that. Nathan Aspinall winning again. Ryan Searle, almost 2 in a row. Gabriel Clemens, who I really rate as a darts player, I think he's fantastic. There's a lot of talk about Martin Schindler being the number 1 German player. Gabriel Clemens is number 1 in Germany, and he is an absolute gun. Before we have a look at the DPA events, which we're going to move on to next, we're going to have a look at the PDC have announced most of the players that are going to compete at the World Series events down here in Australia and New Zealand. So you've got the Queensland Darts Masters in Townsville, the New South Wales Darts Masters in Wollongong. I think that's probably been being played at the Warilla Bowls Club, and New Zealand over in Hamilton. The same players that are confirmed with 2 players to go. So for anyone that doesn't know about the World Series, they send over some players. It looks like it's 8 players they send over as the stars to face 8 challengers, basically. And then it's a knockout tournament from there. We have 3 stars from Australia that are going to represent the challengers, which is fantastic to see. It just has more gun players rather than putting them with the PDC players, which does leave a little bit less room for some qualifiers to get in, but that's fine. So the stars that are going to be competing is Peter Wright, Gerwin Price, Michael Van Gerwen, Fallon Sherrick is coming over to Australia, James Wade, who we all love to watch, Michael Smith, 2 more to be confirmed. Hopefully it's Gary Anderson and Johnny Clayton. I get the feeling, no, it won't be. I think it will be Johnny Clayton and probably Rob Cross. I don't think Gary will come over to Australia. It's a very, very long trip. So he'll probably say no to that, and they will send Rob Cross, which is good as well because we want to see Rob Cross play. The challenges, the 3 challenges for all 3 events. So those locked-in stars are for all 3 events. The challenges for all 3 events will be Whitlock, Simon Whitlock, Damon Hedder and Gordon Mathers. They'll compete at all 3. The New Zealand, New South Wales and Queensland Darts Masters. So for New South Wales and Queensland, there will be 4 DPA qualifying players. Who knows when they will play them. I'm assuming they'll have different qualifying events for both Queensland and New South Wales. Don't be surprised if you see the same guys playing. And whether they play those qualifiers or sneakily throw in the 2 kids that are going to... I don't know if we've discussed this before, but Bailey Marsh and Brandon Weaning will be competing at the World Youth Masters. So I won't be surprised if those 2 are thrown in there to make sure that they're competing in that. If not, then it'll more than likely be Raymond Smith, Robbie King, probably Tim Pusey will make it, and probably Bailey Marsh as well. Who knows, there's quite a few other names, but they're the common names that you're going to see. But with a vastly improved weekend at the DPA, it's open. And so with the New South Wales one, that's the same for DPA qualifiers. Queensland, New South Wales is the same. And for the New Zealand Darts Masters, this is where we're getting what we're getting at. There'll be 4 darts players New Zealand qualifiers and 1 DPA qualifier. So just wrap that up and give it to Raymond Smith now, as long as he wants to go to New Zealand. But we can't wait for that. That's going to be fantastic. It's going to be exciting. Get your tickets now. The DPA events 7, 8, and 9. Remember, there was no Queensland for this one, and so just the four locations playing. Queensland flooded out. We'll talk a little bit later more in depth about that. We're going to go state by state to start with, not event by event, so we can get an idea of each location's players and who's playing well. We went through the rankings last week, but we won't do that yet because I doubt they've been updated. All right, New South Wales. Friday is straight into a knockout event. They had a field of 22. The semi-final was Dave Marlin versus Dave Hanel. Both regulars in the events there in New South Wales. Dave Marlin, especially of late, starting to come in. I don't know if he played the first weekend, maybe. Probably played the last 2 events, I think, at the second weekend. This being the third weekend. But yeah, he won 6-4 over Dave Hanel. And Mark Tafe, who's a regular, over David Boyle, he won 6-0. The final was 6-5 win for Dave Marlin, his first win of the Pro Tour. And yeah, it was a pretty good final, 83 average to 78. New South Wales definitely stepping it up there. There's a reason behind that, which we'll talk about later. Saturday, round robin to knock out 27 players. The semi-finalists there were Mitchell Clegg versus Daniel Pearson. I think that was the flex dude that they were talking about with a really weird action where he brought his like that and brought his elbow in, which very strange, but it is what it is. Yeah, Mitchell Clegg won that 5-1. Dave Hanel again made a semi-final against Zinzan Kulshan. Not sure I'm pronouncing that right. And it was a 5-1 win to Dave Hanel, so another final for Dave Hanel. But Mitchell Clegg took that one out 6-4. Sunday, 30 players rocked up for the same as the Saturday, round robin to knockout. Semi-final, similar names again. You've got Dave Marlin 5-1 over Zinzan Kulshaw. 85 average for Dave Marlin with 72 for Zinzan. Mark Tafe had another semi-final. He had a 5-3 win over Mitchell Clegg. 75 to 79, the averages there. So once again, getting right up there. And Marlin made it a double for the weekend. Dave Marlin from Marlin Real Estate. 6-3. So it was a great weekend for Dave Marlin. So definitely catching up some ground now on Mark Tafe. I think he was at the top of the leaderboard there in New South Wales. But yeah, definitely the quality was up there. So a lot of you weren't seeing many averages above 70 really in New South Wales. Most of the semi-finals and finals were well above 70. You got 78s, 83s, 79s, 85 for Dave Marlin in one of them. So fantastic. And honestly, there's no surprise that that's happened when you throw someone like Mitchell Clegg in there. He may not have made every semi-final and he only won one event, but I definitely had picked him to win most of them. But him being there and the quality that he is has made everyone else in New South Wales, they've stepped up their game. Dave Marlin throwing like that all weekend was fantastic. He did super well. And yeah, that's just darts. That's how it is. A prime example is the league I'm playing in at the moment. I played a guy just last week, I think it was. Last week or probably the week before. And he's played in the Melbourne Darts League, I think it's called, and that's a high-quality league, and he's a high-quality player. Against me, he averaged 55, I averaged 59, and I took care of him 8-7. He's then played the Eskimo Quinn, the president, I think, of Darts Victoria. He played him yesterday, and they both averaged 60-plus, throwing ridiculous amount of tons in a 15-leg match. So it's just what happens. Your quality just goes up as your opponent's quality goes up. So throwing Mitchell Clegg and things in New South Wales are looking good. Wouldn't be surprised if he upsets what I was talking about before with the qualifiers for the World Series events because he is a talented player. And I don't think he played the first think it was 5 events, and he turned up on the Sunday and won it last month, and has been very prominent this weekend, and will continue to be so long as he plays. So we want that. Definitely have that in the bag in New South Wales. If he's playing, then New South Wales is up and about and playing great darts. South Australia, the Danny Porter show continues. He had a sidekick this weekend in Rob Modra. Danny Porter's made all 3 finals. The Friday night, just 12 players turned up. Porter in the 80 averages all 3 matches. Rob Modra very similar. 6-3 in the final to Rob Modra. And this once again was a very high quality match. Both averaging in the 80s. Plenty of 12 and 13 dart legs in that final. But yeah, Rob Modra took it out. And similar deal, like once if Rob Modra's there, South Australia's quality is going to go up. If Danny Porter's playing well, their quality will go up. Saturday, just the 9 players. Just the 9 players on the Saturday. Danny Porter wins it. Not as high quality as the Friday night, whether that's fatigue, like it's a long, long day. Rocking up at 9 o'clock to start, not playing your final until probably 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a lot of darts. It's a long time. And after playing the day before, look at that. Sunday had 11 players turn up, but Porter, as much as I just talked about the fatigue issue, he saved his best for last. And the Sunday, he's finally averaged 87.40 versus Rob Modra, so a repeat of Friday night. And it was a 6-1 win. So Danny Porter in every final that South Australia has had since the debacle of Event 1. After that, when they've reverted back, he has been in every final and he's taken out 5 titles, I think. So absolute domination over there in South Australia. If Rob Modra's not there, it looks like it's almost a clean sweep every time for Danny Porter. And I can't wait to see him play against the rest of the country. Victoria, Friday nights down in Morwell. 7 players turned up for this one. That's right, 7, not 17, not 27, 7. A great final though, as much as there was only 7 players. Great final, 6-4 Brandon Weaning took out Mal Cumming, an 85 average to 81 for Cumming. So the quality's there. Saturday, you had 14 players turn up. Semi-final, Stuart Coburn took out Mal Cumming 5-4. They must play to first to 5 in their knockouts until the final down in Victoria. 88 average for Stuart Coburn to 82 for Mal Cumming, so another high quality affair. Brandon Weaning, who we discussed earlier about going over to the World Youth Championships, had a 5-2-1 over Barry Leddington, who's putting his name up there in most of the semi-finals now in Victoria. But Stuart Coburn won his first final for the year. I don't think he's played in many. We mentioned him at the start of our podcast about some Victorian players coming through. So once he's playing, things are looking up for the old Victorians. Guys, he's a gun. He's an absolute gun. Sunday, 14 players rocked up down in Morwell. Mal Cumming took out another title, though. He beat Stuart Coburn 5-2 in his semi and Brandon Weaning 6-3 in the final. The final was once again brilliant. So we saw some brilliant finals and semi-finals over the weekend. The averages were right up there. I know we keep saying averages don't mean anything, but averages is basically just call it how many darts you're finishing a leg in. If you're finishing legs in low amounts of darts, that's great darts. But you are seeing very consistent names up the top there in Victoria. Stuart Coburn, and good to see him back up there. No Brody Clinge this weekend, probably too far to travel down to Morwell. I know they've got the Easter Classic coming up, so he's probably just getting ready for that. Yeah, there was no Clinge, no Reece Mathewson, no Justin Thompson, who was over at Lakeside. He should be on his way back and hopefully there next month. So just there's still quality there in Victoria. And if you get a few more names involved, you're only going to see that quality go up. But you definitely want to see those numbers going up. WA, that was where it was at this weekend. Without Queensland playing, you had WA flying the flag. As I said, the quality was still there. All those other states, if anything, New South Wales was up. although their numbers weren't down as much, it was very similar to what they normally get. They don't normally get a bit more than that. I think they normally have 40 odd. But yeah, the quality over in WA is unmatched this weekend, even though, as I said, there's just very little averages below 70 throughout the whole day, whereas a lot of the round robin in the other states, you get a lot less quality in those matches, and a lot of the early knockouts not as good. But yeah, the semi-final on Friday, David Platt versus Loz Ryder. A lot of old school and new school generation shit going on in WA, and it's fantastic. 6-2 win for David Platt. From 2-all, David Platt threw 2 15-dart legs, 2 16-dart legs, and just blew old Loz Ryder out the water with that style of darts, and that high pressure and high scoring stuff. That's what David Platt can do. Justin Miles beat David Burke 6-5 in a tight one, a 13-dart leg to win that for Justin Miles, and he went on to win the final. Justin Miles in a cracker 6-5. Platt was on 72 when Miles took out 41 for a 14-dart leg, so quality, and poor old David Platt just sitting there waiting. 72 is not a bad finish. Not a bad one to finish up on, or attempt to finish up on. Saturday had 27 players. Howard Jones made a final. I've never heard of Howard Jones. Brenton Lloyd, which I have heard of and have seen play a bit now. He and David Platt both had good days. Brenton Lloyd beat Bailey Marsh in the quarters. David Platt had a 5-0 win over Blake Hatchett. Buckets, I think he's called. And that was one of the performances of the weekend. It really was. It was stunning. Nearly 91 average, I think. Platt won 6-2 in the final with a 91 average to Howard Jones 84. So another quality match. 84 was right up there with everyone else over the weekend, but Platt threw a 91. He won the last 5 legs in 17 darts, 12, 16, 16, and 13 darts. So quality stuff from David Platt. Sunday had 25 players over there in WA. And Justin Miles won his second title for the weekend over Bailey Marsh. Once again, Brenton Lloyd had a good day, and so did Joe Comito. So those guys featuring up there regularly, and will threaten the Queensland reign that is what it looks like will happen later on in the year. It looks like a lot of the Queenslanders will run away there, but that's not. I don't think that'll happen. It's what looks like could happen, but it won't happen. So we're over halfway through the DPA events now, and a lot of similar names are starting to build form now, which is good. Good to see, because that's what we want coming up to those World Series qualifiers and the World Series events, is the best players starting to hit form. And as we get closer to that, the Oceanic Masters, the Order of Merit, as they build and build and build, we're only going to get a quality affairs towards then. I have read that Queensland might make up that event that they missed, which is not what I'd heard earlier. I did hear that it was just not happening. There have been a bit of uproar from the Queenslanders. James Bailey went on Dartstream Live and said that the main issue for them was that they're just not getting that match practice in. And as you saw, it is crucial, because as we move to the third event, you did see all the finals. So South Australia has been synonymous for good quality most of the day, and then the finals really drop off to that below 60, not below 60, but in the mid-60s for their averages, and that was well out the water there. And New South Wales the same. Once you got towards the semis and the finals, it got a bit tense and tight, and you saw some pretty standard averages of around the 60 mark, but that wasn't the case this weekend. So that match fitness is crucial, and I believe in that too. I didn't get to play a match for a long time, and I'm now starting to struggle a bit, and I need to ensure that I keep, if I'm going to practice, need to jump on Knacker and make sure I'm playing competitive matches as my practice, do a little bit of other stuff here and there throughout the day, but when it comes to proper practice time, get on and do it properly. Now, the numbers were horrendous for some places and sometimes. Just 7 This is the Pro Tour of darts in Australia. This is our highest level. This is the equivalent to the Pro Tours for us, where there's 128 players who get invited, not get to turn up, get invited. You can't just rock up to those. So, but they're not alone. So South Australia for the weekend was 12 players, 9 players, 11 players. So it's just not good at all. And it comes down, it's pretty simple. We're not professionals here in Australia. We cannot just quit work, leave work. I'm not speaking on behalf of experience because I don't have a job. You can't schedule an event on a Friday night, especially the Victorian one when it's 3 hours from Melbourne. That's just doesn't make sense. When I worked Fridays down in Melbourne, I was finishing work at maybe 3 in the afternoon, and I was lucky. It would take me an hour and a bit to get home, to get yourself organised. It would be 3 o'clock before I'm leaving. 3 hours down to Morwell. I don't want to be playing darts then. I would be absolutely cooked. Even the other states, similar deal. Friday night, it's the end of the week. Why are we scheduling a Friday night event? Don't know. It's just not required. And yeah, anyone who is now qualified for the Oceanic Masters, so the qualification for the Oceanic is 50% of the DPA events. A lot of them would have played now. So the rest, the Order of Merit finals, which is the other way to make the Worlds and the other way to win a massive title in Australia, you've got to finish top 16. A lot of players are going to be locked into that top 16, at least the top 7 or 8. No one's going to knock off Brandon Weaning, Mal Cumming, probably Brodie Clinge now, and Barry Leddington. They won't be knocked off out of the top 16. They don't have to turn up to another event at all. Similar with most of the states, Dave Hanel, Mark Tafe aren't going to have to turn up to another event. WA is a bit of a different story because it has been so competitive, and you do see a lot of other names over there. South Australia, Danny Porter don't have to turn up. You could probably look at Scott Hallett, Adam Leake, Rob Modre in the same vein. They probably don't have to turn up to another event, and they're making that Order of Merit final. So don't schedule a Friday night. They probably turn up because they feel like they have to. They're probably loyal to the people running the event and don't want to make it look ridiculous. But a lot of them that don't need to probably won't, especially the Friday night. We don't need 3 events. We don't need to name it event 1, 2, 3 in one weekend. 4, 5, 6 in one weekend. You know what I'm getting at. It can just be one event, I feel. There's no need for... You can do it more often if you want, especially with the not travelling. You can have a fortnight or every 3 weeks and have it run for longer than 5 events. And I think that is simply just going to have a longer tournament, more matches, without having the stress of cramming all this into a weekend. You just have... There's no Friday, as I said a million times now. Get rid of Friday. Round robin Saturday, knockout Sunday. And that allows, if you want to go back to your old system, not so much the rankings, because that just didn't work and no one even knew what the hell was going on there. But you have a certain amount per venue, certain amount of players per venue that make it through. And you can have the knockout. It's not that hard to play online knockout darts. Even my competition is online. It's not that difficult, especially when they're all there ready to go. And then you're not cramming knockout, round robin and knockout across a whole nation, across 5 different venues in one. So it's pretty straightforward stuff. If you wanted to go down that path, I think it's simple. No Friday. It's Saturday, Sunday, round robin. Saturday, Sunday's knockout, and it's inter-venue. It's inter, not intra. So that we're getting the best in Australia playing against each other. I think they need to go back to that method, because you're now seeing, you have no idea where everyone's at. You have no idea how good Danny Porter is. You have no idea how good Brandon Weaning is. You have no idea how dominant Raymond Smith is. We all know they're doing well in their state, but it means nothing. So as I said, round robin, Saturday, knockout, satellite, Sunday, and you're done. You can do that every 3 weeks instead of every month. You can have it run for 10 10 events, which leads you up to the initial scheduled time of October for the Oceanic and the Order of Merit. And you can have a couple of weeks off for the World Series. Anyway, I don't know. That's just my theory. The main issue has got to be the way it's marketed. I know of at least... So my online league is split into 4 groups. You got Group 1, who average around that 65 plus. And a lot of them can get right up there to that 80. My group, Group 2, we average anywhere from 50 to that 60 to 65. Group 3 and Group 4 are a little bit lower. 7 players turn up to Victoria. There is 7 players in our competition, online competition, that will be competitive right up until the semi-finals. That competition is called the Seymour District Darts Association. It's their online comp. They also have an in-venue competition, and I can give you another 7 players there, apart from the 7 players online that will be competitive. But how many of them know what's available, what's on the line, as in a chance to go to the Worlds, a chance to play against the best players in Australia, there's prize money on the line, and the experience you get from playing in such an event. How many of them know that that's happening? And I haven't left my little competition. So it needs to be marketed better, and people need to understand what's available. The format that it is at the moment, probably to who it is marketed to, aren't interested because it is too much in one weekend. A lot of us have families. So to tell your family that once a month I have to be away from Friday morning before I go to work, so realistically you're not going to see me from Thursday night through to Sunday night, and I'm going to be bugged and go to bed. So it's basically Thursday through to Monday night if they don't get any time off work, that they're away. And it's just not realistic. But who knows what they're going to do about it. It hasn't got long to go. It needs a shake-up for next year. You will not be able to do Friday, Saturday, Sunday next year when it's all in one venue. You're probably looking at doing all in one day because the WA guys, it's just going to be too hard for them to get too much time off. But I'm looking forward to seeing what they do moving forward. I don't know if there's an issue with doing it how I've just suggested long-term to save a lot of people a lot of money. How many players from Western Australia can afford to fly probably the 5 times a year, 4 times a year just for darts? I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, that'll do. That's a little bit of a rant, not a rant. I love watching the DPA stuff. I love seeing the best in Australia go at it. And as I said, I rattled off multiple 80-plus averages. David Platt had 290 averages, and you had 2 in the Premier League average in the 80s and 5 last week average in the 80s. So I love watching it. The quality's there. It's just not a feasible system the way it is at the moment, I don't think. And I don't think it's being held in Morwell anymore, the New South Wales, the Victorian events. So you won't see those sort of numbers again. I don't think it'll be that low. I don't think it's going to skyrocket, and you might see some drop off elsewhere, except Queensland, who will have 60 plus. I can put my little hat on that Queensland will skyrocket. I may even go and have a roll the arm over. Anyway, enjoy the darts. There's more coming your way. We're building up nicely towards the world match play. That's just going to be phenomenal this year. I can't wait. There's so many players in form. Hopefully Gerwin Price gets his hand right. Hopefully Aspinall gets his wrist right. Peter Wright's back. And all the players on the Players' Championship on the floor that are playing well. Look out for Rob Cross. I think he's going to have a phenomenal couple of weeks leading up to that. The World Cup's in between, and then we move to the World Series. So plenty coming our way in the way of darts. Long live the darts, fellas, ladies, gentlemen, whoever it is. And stay tuned for what's left to come.